So I'm trying something new out with the channel. Please let me know what you think. But first off, we are covering a game that got sent to me by a direct sales company called Indie Press Revolution. I hope I got that right because I did look it up right before recording this. In any case, they sent me a game that requires another game to play, which is called Wooden Block Stacking Game. And I am not going to say the copyright name or patent name or trademark named, registered trademark. I'm not going to say that. The game that I want to talk about replaces dice with this wooden block tower. And that game is not Dread, if you're familiar with Dread, the horror game where if the tower falls over, your character dies. Instead, we will be talking about this game over here called Starcrossed, which is a game where you play as star-crossed lovers who cannot be together. But if the Jenga tower falls down, they must get together. And I'm going to go into more detail about this game, which is kind of weird, but honestly, I love the art. It's kind of cute. First, as a disclaimer for this game is going to cover a lot of intimate themes, so maybe you want to play it with someone who you're comfortable with, such as a spouse, a partner, or a friend who you know will be able to play this game without taking it too seriously. Or, I don't know, I'm not going to stop you from playing with anyone else if you are able to get their consent in doing so. Consent is important with these games. Don't make someone play a game they don't want to be playing. That's why I don't title this Dungeons & Dragons, the Starcrossed Lovers Edition, even though there's no Dungeons & Dragons in here. People aren't here for Dungeons & Dragons. They're here for a giant wooden stacking tower game. The overview of this book is essentially get ready by reading through the book. Make sure you have all the materials you need. Setup has you reading this all out to your partner. So you're not my partner, but I'm going to be reading this out loud anyway. You introduce an X card, which is essentially a way of a player saying that something in a scene is making them uncomfortable. When the X card gets put up, you can skip that scene and go to the next one, or skip that action and go to the next action that's a little bit more appropriate or more comfortable for the player. This is a safety tool that is often used for phobias, but because this is a game about intimacy, you're going to probably be needing it as well, just in case. Usually people will know the limitations of the people they play with, though if you don't, the X card is a good alternative. Decide on the reason that your characters have been brought together, and also decide on the reason that they are being kept apart. Now, you will then make your characters, choose who will be playing the lead and who will be playing the follow. You fill out your character sheets, answering all the questions together. Your character sheets are going to look like this, and they're kind of identical, except one says the follow and one says the lead. After that, you will build up your tower, your block tower as it were, and you can start pulling out your first bricks. And then you place them on the top 3 in a row, and you're ready to start the game. As far as the characters themselves go, you can come up with whatever idea you want. If you want an empress who is having a crush on the vizier, you can do that. If you want 2 nuns in a covenant, you can have that as well. They even have a picture of that here. But in any case, there are a wide variety of character types you can do. Here's an astronaut and a satyr for some reason. So onwards to the gameplay. What we need to discuss first are these cards here, which are called scenes. You'll start off with scene number 1, which is the introduction, but there are a variety of other scenes in here. I'm not going to go too much into detail about these different types of scenes, but this one, for instance, scene 5, close, quiet, and alone, is something that will help the players basically have a prompt to create a scene together. For instance, if it's the Empress and the Vizier, close, quiet together might mean that they are in the royal chamber for whatever reason alone, or maybe they're at a theater show and they're talking during the theater. There are many ways to interpret these, and it's all up to the players to do so. However, we have this wooden block stacking game before us. What are we doing with this? Well, when a scene starts, you can do a variety of things called moves. This is stuff like describing your character's movements. You describe a detail in your character's environment. If you pull a brick from the tower, you can describe how you're touching the other character. You can also describe your character revealing something personal. There are descriptions in here for what a lead or a follow might do for those particular movements. Also, when you're touching the tower, you can sort of have a dialogue with the other player as well. The main purpose of the game is for you to build up attraction with the other character by filling in these little stars that are on the character sheet here. These stars are different for each of the lead and the follow. That describe your character intentionally touching the follow is a lead action. You have a lot of stars for this. You have 8 stars to fill in for attraction by intentionally touching the follow. However, for unintentionally touching the follow, there's only 1. And the follow has it the exact opposite. Unintentionally touching the lead has 8 stars, whereas intentionally touching them has 1. That 1 star means you can only do it a maximum of once per game. Before we talked about dialogue. Dialogue happens when you're touching the tower itself. Now, this gets more difficult later on in the game as the tower has stacked higher and higher and is more precarious. As you touch the tower to have this dialogue, you're actually risking the tower falling over, so you might want to step back a bit when you're touching it. So you might touch it just for a brief moment to say something like, "I love you," and then pulling away and hoping that the tower doesn't fall down in that exact moment. If the tower does fall down, we have endgame. However, there is more than just one endgame. So if the tower does fall over, this means that the person who last touched it must make an undeniable demonstration of their true feelings for the other character. This can be something such as a passionate embrace, a declaration of love, tearfully, you have to have all the tears, or the slightest movement of the hand onto another in silence without looking up. Choose whatever is most dramatically appropriate. However, you can fill up all your attraction stars, and that is also the end game. And if that's the case and the tower is still standing, you still have to go into this epilogue phase. If the tower is still standing by the end of the game, that means your characters do not act upon their attraction and go their separate ways, never to know the love that could have been. If you do get to the epilogue and the tower falls over, which you can do on purpose, by the way. So for instance, if you get to the end and the tower's still standing, one of you can just knock it over and be like, "Oops, I guess we now have to declare our love for each other." At the end of the game, when the tower's fallen over, you have to compare your combined score totals with each other. This is sort of influences the epilogue that you're going to have. With a combined score of 1 to 10, it wasn't the right time, you revealed too much too soon, and the connection is irrevocably broken. 11 through 13, passions burn bright but fizzle quickly. 14 to 16 is uneasy intimacy, and then 17 to 19 is sweet cherished love with the bitter certainty of loss. And then you have 20 plus, which I believe there are only 20 stars to fill out, so I don't know how you're getting more than 20. Your mind is overwhelmed by the frantic beating of your heart. Damn the world. From now on, you only need each other. In any case, you do describe that scene. The lead and follows do so together to sort of round up the story. And then at the end, you say goodbye. You gather up the blocks, you go on your separate ways, or if you want, you can talk about the game, your characters, and what might have been, and you can reassemble the tower to try again. This is an interesting game. I did have a chart that I was using for whether or not I would play games as full campaigns or as one-shots. This game is definitely a 2-player game with role-playing elements. Specifically, I feel like it's mostly going to be useful for one-shots because you have all these different character sheets you have here. For instance, there are multiple character sheets here for the follow and the lead. That means to me that you're going to play this multiple times with different characters each time. Find someone who you know can appreciate playing a game like this and who you feel comfortable with doing this with. I really say from my heart, as the game suggests, always talk from the heart. You should try this game out if you have someone who you feel comfortable with and who will consent to playing the game. Hopefully I'll be able to try this game out someday It's very interesting, and I hope you can see that tabletop role-playing games can be all about love as well as violence. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good one. If you'd like to help the channel out, you can always put $1 towards the Patreon if you feel like it, or even $5 if you're feeling generous. I am currently doing a Mage the Awakening actual play, which is taking some time to do, but hopefully I'll be getting the next episode out soon, and you can check that out in the description below.